Okay, today we start a new module, which is Module 4, Expressions and Equations. So I want you to start out a new section in your math journal. I'll give you a tab for the corner page, and it's going to be Module 4, Expressions and Equations. And today we're actually going to go through some vocabulary as well as Lesson 1 and 2 in our notes. So Lesson 1 is the relationship of addition and subtraction. And we're going to start out with an equation and an example, and then we'll kind of work into what that means. Most of you should recognize it from what we did in the beginning for our opening lesson. So it shouldn't be anything new, but I'll explain it as we go. So this first equation says w minus x plus x equals w. An example of that would be 12 minus 3 plus 3 equals 12. Just meaning that if we start with 12, if we were to take 3 away, add those 3 back, then we would still come back with our original number 12. Another way that we could do this, showing the relationship of addition and subtraction, would be w plus x minus x equals w. An example of that would be 12 plus 3 minus 3 equals 12. So again, we would have that original number of 12. If we were to take 3 away, add 3, then take 3 away, we would still come back with that original number of 12. So one way to say that is that if we add and subtract the same value, so here we added and subtracted 3, if we add and subtract the same value, it is similar to adding 0 to an expression because the two numbers are opposites, which have a sum of 0. Also, when you see evaluate the expressions, I should probably have a quote around it. So you'll see this sometimes in the work that we're doing. It'll say evaluate the expression or evaluate the expressions. That means that you're to give the answer. So it means you're to write the answer or tell the answer. So just so you understand, when it says evaluate the expression, it means you're going to work it out and you're going to give an answer. An expression is a numerical expression, or when you replace some of the numbers with variables. So an example of an expression would be 4 plus 6, or you could also show a plus b. So both of those are examples of an expression. Notice an expression does not have an equal sign. Turn to a second page if you need to. I needed to. You may still have room. As you know, I write big. So on my second page, I have the word equation, which is another word we're going to define that we're going to need, obviously, during this module. So an equation has an equal sign. It's a statement of equality. So in other words, using that same equation that we used earlier, except replacing w and x with a and b. So a plus b minus b equals a. So that would be an equation because it has that equal sign and it's showing equality from this expression to this expression. A variable is a symbol or letter that represents a number. So this a right here is a variable. Any letter can be a variable, okay? Any letter. Identity, when variables can be replaced with any number and after completing the operations, returns to the original number. So again, an example of that would be a plus b minus b equals a. That would be the equation of the identity. The example of that would be 10 plus 6 minus 6 equals 10. So again, just showing that if you have that original number of 10, you add 6, and then you take 6 away, you come back to that original number of 10. That's what an identity is, saying that when you place any number in there, that's what's going to happen. Lesson 2, multiplication and division. So we're covering both lessons today. It's still the same vocabulary, just showing what that equation would look like for multiplication and division. So the big idea that we want to remember is that when a number is multiplied and divided by the same number, the result is the original number. And I have 2 examples down here at the bottom. A divided by b times b equals a. An example of that would be 12 divided by 3 times 3 equals 12. So let's talk about why that works. 12 divided by 3. So do that math in your head. Hopefully you came up with 4. So if we take that 4 and multiply it by 3, we come back to that original number of 12. Okay. The other equation that would go with this, remember they're equations because they have equal signs. A times b divided by b equals a. An example of that, 4 times 2 divided by 2 equals 4. So if we work that out in our head, 4 times 2, right, is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. You may have noticed something different about the multiplication signs in both of these. So think about what you may have noticed. Here is probably the multiplication sign, or sometimes you call it the times sign that you may be used to. But also know that this dot serves as a multiplication sign as well. And they'll be used interchangeably, which means you'll see both ways. So I want you to make sure you recognize that this dot is also a multiplication sign. That's the end of notes for today. So you're going to need to turn in your math book to Module 4, Lesson 1. So I'll give you a second to find that, and then we'll get started. Okay, so Lesson 1, the relationship of addition and subtraction. So this opening exercise, we did that in groups with our big cards with the numbers when we did expressions and equations. So we've already done all of this opening exercise. And really even this first exercise of removing squares, adding them back, and talking about our equations. Okay, so this we've already done. So I'm actually going to have you turn to number 4. So number 4 has an A, B, C, and D, and number 5 has an A, B, C, and D. You'll notice that in number 4, I'll blow this up a little bit so you can see it. In number 4, it's using actual numbers. It says, using your knowledge of identities, fill in each of the blanks. So we've talked about the identities in our notes as well as in our opening exercise. So what you'll need to do is fill in the blanks here to make these equations true. And again, remember they're equations because they have an equals sign. So I want you to work on number 4, A, B, C, and D. You can pause the tape, and then when you're finished, you can come back and check your answers. So 4, A, B, C, and D. Using your knowledge of identities, fill in each of the blanks. Okay, so what you should have come up with is that 4 plus 5 minus 5 equals 4 for A. 25 minus 10 plus 10 equals 25 for B. 45 plus 16 minus 16 equals 45. And for D, 56 minus 20 plus 20 equals 56. If there are any of those that you missed, please mark them so that we can discuss them after the lesson, or you can be sure to ask me or a friend around you questions about them. Number 5, using your knowledge of identities, fill in each of the blanks. So you'll notice that on 5, A, B, C, and D, you have letters. You have those variables in place of the actual values, the number values. Again, they are equations because they have an equal sign, not expressions. So you have expression on either side, or you have an expression and then a number on the other side, or a letter. So you're figuring out what goes in each of these blanks. So read carefully, work on A, B, C, and D, and then check your work. Okay, so for A, you would have A plus B minus B equals A. For B, C minus D plus D equals C. E plus F minus F equals E. G minus H plus H equals G. This is showing you also that it doesn't matter what letters you use as long as you make sure you're following that identity, that this first and last are going to be the same, and that the number that you're adding and then subtracting is also going to be the same. So now we'll look at the problem set for lesson 1. For the problem set, number 1, A, B, and C is a must, and also number 2 is a must. Notice number 2, they're asking a question that you want to answer in your own words. And the question says, why are the equations W minus X plus X equals W and W plus X minus X equals W called identities? So you might want to look back in your notes because we kind of answered that in there and talked about what an identity was. So 1 and 2 of lesson 1 problem set are both must-dos. You should have that with you. Lesson 2 problem set we're going to look at as well. So if you're looking at lesson 2 and looking at that opening exercise, we talked about the relationship of multiplication and division. We did our opening exercise together, and then it has an exploratory challenge, which is really what we did together in our groups. So you're just going to look at the problem set. Again, there are 1 A, B, C, D. You're going to fill in each blank to make the equation true. That's a must. And then number 2 is also a must. And it says, how is the relationship of addition and subtraction similar to the relationship of multiplication and division? So what did you notice that is similar about the relationship of addition and subtraction and the relationship of multiplication and division? So answer that in your own words. When you finish both of those problem sets, staple them together if they've not already been stapled together, and put them in the inbox, and then you are finished with your lesson for today. Please make sure you have all the notes necessary in your notebook, because they will definitely help you with tomorrow's lesson. You may work on 10 marks when you are finished.